welcome back. We are the robots after all.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Andrew. In today's show, we're going to be talking about some new game consoles that are getting announced. Talk a little bit about some of our future episodes we've got coming up. And both Tom and I finished the Loki series on Disney Plus. So we're going to talk a little bit about our reaction to that. So really looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're going to do a deep dive into Loki. Spoiler territory, so watch out if you haven't seen it. Go check it out, get Disney Plus, watch them all, and then watch this. But yeah, this just came out today. It's hot off the press. The Steam Deck was announced by Steam.
What is it?
We're all familiar with Steam. They have a PC platform where you can get games. And now they finally released like a Switch-like console. And I thought this was interesting, given that we were just the announcement of Switch with its OLED and bigger screen version coming out in October. This one's set to come out, I think, in December is their expected release date. And it's basically, it looks kind of similar to a Switch. It's got this little like letterbox look to it. It's got the controllers, they don't detach.
Ooh.
But it's being advertised as a PC gaming unit, whatever you call those, console.
Portable PC machine or something?
Yeah, but you can actually attach it to a monitor.
Oh, interesting.
If you don't want to play. So they're kind of making it seem like it's an entity of itself. Like you can have this and have it be a gaming console.
Okay. So does this only link? I'm assuming this only links to your Steam account. Is that how you get your games?
Yeah, I believe so. I didn't read too much into it, but from what I read, yeah, I mean, it's just links directly to your Steam account.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that raises the question that I think you and I were talking about last time. We were talking about the whole kind of Game Pass versus physical games conversation. So Steam came up with something called DRM, which is, I think it's like digital rights management or something like that. Yeah, digital rights management. And basically what it is it's an authentication layer that is basically like on the server side. So Xbox actually, they launched their Xbox One with this technology. There was a huge uproar, and then they backpedaled because Sony wasn't going to do it, where you always would have to have your console online in order to play your games. And even though they backpedaled on it, they actually they still have a bit of that technology in the Xbox One. And I found that out the hard way the other day when I went to go turn on one of my Xbox Ones that I haven't had on for a while. But before I get into that, so yeah, I wonder if this console is actually going to require that you always have to have an online connection, or you have to be online every so often in order to authenticate to then actually, have the keys to play your games. And that's a huge turnoff for me personally, because, if that server ever goes down, then you just have a useless piece of hardware at some point in the future, right? Like if they stop supporting those authentication servers, you might be able to power this machine on, but if it doesn't have anything to authenticate against, it's basically dead.
Right. And I think, I'm not entirely sure if they're going to have that type of system or not. But it's funny you mentioned that, because you say Sony backpedaled and didn't do it. But I feel like a lot of games on Sony especially, you can't play them unless you update them if you're connected to the internet.
I don't agree. It's Xbox that does that. Sony, you can, when you get the update, you can just delete the update and just play it. And you can even be online and play an unupdated game. Yeah, on PS4, PS5. But Xbox, if you try to play anything online and it needs an update, it refuses. It always pushes you to that screen that says, oops, it looks like there's an update.
Mm-hmm.
And what really kind of threw me off was I was actually testing Borderlands 3 on a couple different consoles. I was testing it on the Xbox Series X, and I'm having some weird like screen tearing issues when loot drops, like you start like running through the loot and the screen is kind of tearing. So I was like, oh, I wonder if that happened on the Xbox One X. And I won't update anything just to see if like, the old kind of playthrough that I was doing was behaving that way, and I just didn't notice it. So I was like, all right, I'll go in. I'll turn the console on. I won't update it. I'll put the game in. I won't go online. I literally couldn't play the physical disc without going online. But in order to go online, I had to update the console. And I didn't want to update the console because I wanted to see if the issue was related to the new update that I had just done on the Series X. So so then I started popping in other games. I was like, okay, well, this is my quote unquote Xbox home console. So you can actually set a console to your home console, and that'll allow you to supposedly play offline. And I could play Cuphead and I could play Stick of Truth because those were digital download games that I had. But any physical disc that I put in, Xbox One or Xbox 360, it wouldn't let me play the game, even though it was an Xbox game. And the reason why is because this DRM thing basically requires that you're online every so often, and you have to basically like put the game in and authenticate it online in order to play it, even with a disc. And that, in my opinion, is unforgivable, because right now, if the Xbox, like, let's say it's like several years in the future, they just don't support that anymore, that console's bricked. Like, I can't use it with all these games that I have on my shelf, and everyone's kind of like touting all this, like, oh, physical media. It doesn't matter, because Xbox is basically destroying that idea because you can't play the physical games. Sony doesn't do that. Sony, you can be offline, as far as I know, although I very rarely leave the Sony console offline for a long time. But whenever I play, I very frequently won't take the updates. Like, I'll put a Sony game in. It'll be like, oh, it's downloading an update. I'll run over to the update. I'll delete it, and then I'll just keep playing. And I'm online, and it's totally fine. So, yeah, I don't know. I just hope that we don't, I feel like not a lot of people are aware that this is happening. Online is becoming so like prevalent that, it's I don't think it's becoming an issue for many people. But what I am really worried about is that people are spending $600-700 on consoles nowadays. However, much this new Steam Deck machine is, right? That could be $1,000, and you might be investing in something thinking like, hey, if I take good care of this, it'll be a long-term collectible. It'll be, something that I can always kind of go back to. And we might be kind of falsely buying these machines, not realizing that, at some point they're going to be useless, not because they're obsolete machinery, but because they're actually bricked by this security mechanism. Even though you've paid the money for the game and the console, you can't play them together because the server is not online anymore. So,
Right. And I guess it's like a similar platform to like Spotify music and stuff. When you're paying for streaming and then it's gone, it's like you can't access the music that you had on there. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be officially the case with them. And if it is, that is worrisome, because you don't want to have a system where it's a portable, like it's being sold as a portable gaming system. You don't want to have to be connected to Wi-Fi to play the games that you want to play.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't, it's that's like a weird future to think about, where everything's just kind of floating into that streaming void. But
Well, we're already there, right? Because if I want to keep this Xbox console offline for the rest of its life, I can't use it right now. It's literally useless to me until I update it. So even right now today, if I want to have a console that just sits offline, I can't do that. And I think that that's unacceptable for paying, $600 for a console, and then however much money for each one of the games that you buy, that they don't, and they're branded and licensed together, and then you go to actually play them together, and it's like
right.
So.
I've never been into Steam in general in terms of game. Like, I've gotten like a few games from them, but it's never been a platform that's really held my attention. I've always just been a console person.
Right.
And I only really recently got sucked into that streaming thing when I became like attracted to Game Pass and like what that had to offer. But yeah, the system's out, the Steam Deck. It's really, it is kind of shows you what a Switch could be capable of, because it is slightly bigger, like thicker than the Switch is. So it's interesting to see how it looks. And you haven't even seen it yet, have you?
Just the pictures that you sent.
Oh yeah. So there was IGN has like first access to it, and they were showing the guy holding it, and it's like a little thicker. So I don't know. It's cool. It's nothing I'm personally interested. I just thought it was funny that it came out at the time that it did. in the way that it did, and
Yeah.
right near Nintendo announcing their horrible OLED announcement. But
Yeah, I do think that I think that we're in an interesting kind of um state of flux with this stuff, right? Because like I think Nintendo has found great success with the Switch, and they use the physical cartridge games, kind of harkening back to like more old school. But they haven't quite got the formula right for like more hardcore gamers. Like maybe this is kind of more appealing to those folks, and then those folks might get it and be like, oh, I kind of like the aspect of the Switch where it's got the physical cartridges, you know, and data is so cheap to do it in that kind of flash drive style way of producing the game. So maybe we'll kind of go back to that, and then we'll kind of solve both problems at the same time. But it does really require that people acknowledge there's a problem first, and I feel like these things aren't going to become problems for people until, you know, 10-15 years down the line, when they go to be like, oh, I remember Xbox, or I remember this like old system. They're going to buy it on eBay, and they're going to go to try to play it and not be able to use it.
you know what's interesting is that Phil Spencer, my brother sent me an article, Phil Spencer going on and preaching about how calling on gamers to save the history of gaming and not to have these games get lost on these systems. So it's pretty funny that this DRM thing happened, and then recently he's going on this speech about saving the video game history of like these games just being locked on certain consoles that like have a X amount of shelf life. You know, it's just
Yeah.
it's just a weird.
Yeah, I mean, I think his translation is "please buy the game again on our newest console," is the way he's probably thinking about it.
Keep buying it, and which is like
Yeah.
Nintendo's like dream with everything they do. I don't
Yeah.
know why I said dream, but this is what they do with everything: re-release, re-release, re-release. Bye.
But you know what's cool? I downloaded the Mario 64 and A Link to the Past on my original Wii. When I pop that in, I can still play it today offline. You know what I
That's
mean?
awesome.
You
So
know, like
that
same thing with the Wii U. And I think the Switch is the first console where they've actually been like, no, you have to have the online service in order to play these old games. But historically, like it just saves onto the hard drive. You just own the game.
yeah, that's what I really like about um those consoles. I've been really wanting to get a Wii U for that reason, just because it's such a unique historical console in the fact that it had like the screen thing and with the touch screen. And I even wish I kept my 3DS because I had a lot of really cool games for that too. But
Yeah, 3DS is really amazing.
yeah, 3DS is a cool system.
So yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, stay away from. I'm gonna do a little experiment. I'm gonna turn. I don't really play my Xbox Series X that much anyway. I've been playing more PS5 recently, so I'm gonna turn the Xbox Series X offline, and I'm gonna turn one of my PS4s
Oh,
offline, and I'm just gonna let it sit for like a month, and then I'm gonna try to play games on both of those offline and see if it's an issue with PS4, and then also see if it's an issue with the newest Xbox, because I wonder if they've, with all the flack they caught, if they changed it for this newest generation.
it'd be a fun experiment.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the Steam Deck and all that entails.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, but in other news, you've been buying a lot of Ninja Turtle figures. We're probably going to do an episode on Ninja Turtles because you're into that right now.
Yeah, going back down the memory lane with all the old original figures, some of the new NECA figures, the SH Figure Arts. So yeah, it'll be cool to showcase some of the collection that I'm amassing, and you know, talk about the movies. I've actually been rewatching the movies as well, just to like, I'm actually watching them in the opposite order, going kind of from worst to best, because the first one I think still is the best. So I just
What about the
watched.
Michael Bays?
I watched those. Well, I watched one of them recently, and you know, they're not awful, honestly. Not
No,
as bad as everyone
yeah,
makes it out to be.
that'll be fun to talk about.
Yeah,
Because I didn't hate them either. I thought they were pretty fun. Just poor design choices for the turtles, in my opinion. But
I mean, anything with Will Arnett, and I'm in.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
And then yeah, and I saw Black Widow, the latest and newest entry in the Marvel theatrical experience. which is kind of a big deal because this is like the movie everybody's kind of going to see post-pandemic in a way. There have been
Yeah.
some others, I mean, I know, but I feel like this one really started the steps back into normalcy. Is that a word?
Yeah, because it came
I
out at a
struggle
time.
over my words.
It came out at a time when people finally were vaccinated. Masks are kind of, starting to go away. So it's probably the first blockbuster where
Yeah, it's
all
like they
those
kind of like timed it perfectly. We're gonna wait until everybody can see it so we can make mega bucks.
I, of
So,
course, I'm going to be lazy and I'm going to order it on Disney Plus and watch it from the
are
comfort.
you okay?
Yeah.
That would be my preferred method. I would say if I would have rather done that and been able to watch it with just a few people at home because it's like $20 to, and
I think
then
something like that.
and then how does that work? Is it like, because I saw that on Disney Plus. I don't know if it was like just a one-time payment and you get to watch it type of thing.
Yeah, I think it's just basically I think it's just to rent it, believe it or not.
Yeah.
It's not even to, yeah.
Own.
So you're kind of paying the price of a movie ticket and then a surcharge for convenience, basically.
Right. Yeah.
I will
And
say,
then like the idea is that like you can have a full room of people and pay
right,
$20.
right. With Mulan, we were going to purchase that, and I just waited, and eventually it just came onto Disney Plus for free.
Yeah, it seemed to it come on it like pretty quick.
Yeah, so I mean, I could do that, but I really want to see this one. And then you said that you had gone to see it, so I was like, we should do an episode on it. So I'm gonna.
So it'd be
think
fun
that-
to talk about, and just the movie experience alone, just it's like packed in, and so that's kind of weird in itself. So yeah, we got a few topics
Very cool.
lined up, but I guess we should move on to our main topic, huh?
Yes, let's talk because we have not had
Loki.
we haven't had any kind of conversation about this. I haven't heard any of your reactions to the episode, the most recent episode.
Did you see
I'm
me
still.
when I did this?
I did see that.
I threw my hands in the air. That's Loki throwing the daggers up.
It's pretty cool.
That's his key move.
That is, yeah, he's known for that. So I'm still in denial that this is the last episode. Like I need at least another one after this.
I know. I understand that feeling because when it ended, it was very abrupt.
Yeah.
And you wanted more because they show that the statue of the guy.
Yep.
And you're just like, no, why?
Yeah. I think they opened up a little too much, too quickly, and then just cut us off. But yeah.
It's like and then Owen Wilson's character Mobius, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't know him. I was like, what's going on here? But why are they out like they're
searching,
and then all of a sudden it just like
destroy.
Yeah, it just like blips into the next reality. It was really strange.
Yeah. So let's back up.
You go to the beginning.
Yeah.
The birth of Loki. He was a frost giant.
Fun. So they finally walk into this frozen moment in time or kind of palace that's inside the Alioth, I think is the name of the creature that's able to kind of tear space and time.
Oh, you're staying on the last episode? Yeah, Alioth.
Alioth, yeah. So that's how this episode starts. They literally come up to the door.
Yeah.
That
I thought you meant like the beginning of the series.
Oh no, I didn't plan on. I thought we just talked about the most recent episode. We covered a little bit of the series in the last episode, right? Oh, we did.
I don't think so.
No?
But go ahead. That's fine.
So well, if that's the case, I mean, then do you want to just kind of back up and talk about kind of what you've thought of the series so far, and then we can dive into that?
Sure. I mean, when I thought of this series, the first episode I saw, I was kind of lukewarm on it. I wasn't super sold on this idea and the characters. And then it really kind of like once they introduce Sylvia or the second Loki, it started to get a little more interesting to me. And I think I don't know why. Maybe because I had just watched another show and so it was kind of like piggybacking onto this one a little bit. But I think I felt like it was a little slower paced. But then a lot of like the character development, like Loki seeing his future unfold and his relationship with Mobius building. I kind of like went back and like in my head and kind of like self-analyzed that stuff and it made it a little more interesting to me when I really thought about like the story and what they were trying to do with it. So I think as a whole, I ended up really enjoying it. And even the last episode we were talking about, I was like, well, I liked Falcon and Winter Soldier better, and I think this one actually stands out as my favorite now. After
Yeah, I like this one the best as well.
yeah,
I would actually probably go this one, then WandaVision, and then Falcon and Winter Soldier. But yeah, I mean, I actually the first episode that I watched, I was actually captivated right away. I think that I really like Owen Wilson a lot, and to see him in a show like this was like it felt like out of place, but yet he was like so perfect at the same time, and he brought a certain kind of calmness and a certain maturity to the story that I think was just welcome from kind of the typical superhero supervillain kind of dynamic that normally kind of happens in Marvel movies or shows. So I feel like they're trying to do that in general with these Disney series. You know, they're trying to introduce I think I had mentioned with WandaVision, it kind of had an art house feel to it when you first in the first couple episodes. And I feel like they're trying to, you know, Owen Wilson's known for doing Wes Anderson movies and like a little bit more kind of indie style films or like more artsy films. And I feel like they're trying to like put a little bit of that spice into these Disney shows. And Loki was a perfect kind of next step for that because, you know, it's just not typical in any way. Like anything that is a normal kind of cliche or a kind of typical literary device, like they're twisting it in a way that's interesting. Like time travel, it's been done 1,000 times, but
yeah,
I'm not thinking about that when I'm watching it. They're doing time travel in a way that's actually interesting. You know, they're talking about converging timelines. I'm sorry, diverging timelines, and you know, it's just you just get sucked in and you're just like in the story. There's a lot of human element, you know, human emotion, relationships that are not even like there are relationships that are developed, but there's almost relationships that you know, like I forget her name now, but the judge and Owen Wilson, right? There's like an established relationship there that they're able to convey and make you feel something with like very, very quickly without a lot of background, with a lot of story. So just really, really good writing, really good directing, and you know, a totally different approach. Not a lot of action for a good portion of the first few episodes because it just doesn't need it.
yeah. And that's what's great about these shows in general. They're not relying on action as to carry them.
Or violence.
Yeah, they're not relying on violence. Maybe a little sexiness, but not too much.
Yeah, could have a little bit of that. Could have a little love story.
Yeah, and Tom Hiddleston as Loki is perfect. I remember I actually read that he would play this character forever. I mean, he's just like perfect in that role. Is it Tom Hiddleston, right? Is that his
I
name?
think so.
Tom.
You guys.
So
I'm
yeah,
Tom, and I'm Hiddleston.
yeah. All the character building in these Marvel shows have been really good, and this world, this like kind of like retro themed environment is kind of neat. And there's like nice little Easter eggs sprinkled throughout. I remember pausing it actually. I think it was the second episode. Loki's in front of a computer, and I paused it at this perfect moment, and there's like you can see what's on the screen, and it's like this multiple choice question about Thanos, or is it Thanos or Thanos?
Thanos. I've always said Thanos.
Thanos is like talking about if he ate an apple in this, I'd have to read it because I'll butcher it, but they show like this little scenario with Thanos and an apple or something, and then there's like different choice, multiple choice question answers to choose from, and there's just like this silly little mind bending little write up, and it was kind of neat. And I always love stuff like that. But yeah, as the show goes on, I mean, it really picks up in those last few episodes. And yeah, I mean, you have the introduction to the second Loki, and it's just kind of like, whoa, we got a.
I didn't believe it at first. I was like, oh, is she like an imposter? Did she take his place in one of the timelines? Like she killed him, took his like costume and is like, playing the part. And then when you find out that she's just a variant of
Right.
Loki from another timeline,
Yeah.
becomes very cool very quickly.
Yeah. And then her world has gotten pruned. So she's kind of like her entire timeline was pruned apparently.
Yeah.
And she's basically been able to jump from time to time trying to like destroy the TVA because of what they did to her.
Yeah.
And
Hiding
yeah,
out in
so
apocalypses.
huh?
Hiding
Oh,
out in apocalypses.
yeah, hiding in apocalypses because I guess they don't go to those places.
Yeah, it has had to do with the fact that because the apocalypse always ends because there's so much like there's no deviation because everything ends in an apocalypse. So it never gets picked up on their scanners because there's no deviation that happens at the end of something. So she's constantly jumping from end to end to end. Like that, I think Loki demonstrates it. They go to Pompeii. And he's like, you're all going to die from this volcano. And they're like, ah. And Owen Wilson's freaking out. He's like, no, you can't do that. And the volcano comes and wipes everything out. And it's like, there was no change because none of this matters.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that was an interesting scene. It was almost kind of like edgy for Disney in a way that like they're kind of like you're all gonna die. It's like yeah, it was weird, but funny and
Yeah,
silly.
I think that's like, yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about. It's like they're trying to go a little bit more artsy or a little bit more edgy. And it's definitely working. So I think that they are, because Disney has bought up so many properties recently, and some of those properties are kind of known to be more adult, they're kind of spanning there. They used to use like Touch Tone Pictures to do like more kind of PG or PG-13 or that kind of thing. And now they're just like, I will just put it under Disney. It's fine.
Yeah,
Everybody knows it's us.
So yeah, it brings up a lot of like interesting ideas throughout the show of how it's kind of like the show to lead into what they're trying to do with all the multiverses in a way, because the new movies are kind of based around that, right? I mean, I think the next Spider-Man movie is really focusing in on that. And yeah, I don't know, I guess we should jump to those last few episodes and really talk about those, because those are probably the most interesting.
Yeah, I feel like since we got started at the beginning, it's probably important to talk a little bit about the TVA. They're
Sure.
this basically like time cops, where they're trying to, make sure that there's only one timeline and that everybody follows this one timeline. And if you deviate from this one timeline, then you get hunted down, by these time cops, like a SWAT team. And we find out
They should have had Jean-Claude Van Damme in there. The original time cop.
Yeah, that'd have been a nice callback. So, you find out in the later episodes that, the there's supposed to be these timekeepers that are basically kind of calling the shots on the TVA. You find out that they're not real, that there was just kind of a fabrication of androids that were kind of in their place. And then it becomes like very apparent that there's somebody else is pulling the strings, and it gets revealed that all the people who are working for the TVA are actually variants from other timelines themselves, that they've basically been pulled and kind of tricked into being in this space. What they don't explain is how the people have no memory of their other lives. And I wonder, because if they have all this focus on Loki, and obviously it's the title of the show, I wonder if they used a Loki from a certain timeline to enchant these people to lose their memories, because they didn't really explain how these people just kind of come into the TVA. They live for hundreds of thousands of years. They're seemingly immortal, but there's really no explanation of that. And we didn't really get into all of the powers of the individual who is kind of behind the scenes, but I'm not sure if wiping their memory would be kind of one of them.
Yeah, it might be. I mean, I guess that would make the most sense, is that because since he's the one that created the TVA, that he would be able to do that. He who remains. Uh, so I mean, that's probably the most plausible thing that could happen, I guess.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting that they didn't really get to that. Maybe they'll get into it in the next season or something.
But yeah, you're right. Yeah, they don't explain that at all.
Yeah. So yeah, Loki and Loki end up
They meet
finding.
up.
Yeah, they meet up and they find the one who remains in the void after one of them gets pruned. They kind of cut to this area where everyone goes, which is considered to be like this end of time. And we find out that the one who remains is kind of hiding inside basically like a temporal creature that's able to kind of rip space and time, which is how he's able to basically hide from everyone.
Yeah. Oh, the he who remains is able to do that.
Well, Eliath does that.
No, Elias. Okay. Yeah.
Eliath is the creature that he's inside, basically. So.
Oh, right, right, right. Yeah, I mean the whole pruning thing was interesting too, because that was a mystery of like what actually happens. Do they just are they just done? So it was kind of cool that they had these kind of impactful moments where Loki gets pruned and Mobius gets pruned, Owen Wilson's character, and you're like, oh crap, well what the hell? It sucks. And then they go into like, oh well, that little in credit scene in what is it, like the second to last episode maybe, or the third to last episode, and then they show Loki waking up to the other Loki variants that have also been pruned and put into this void. I don't know if they had a name for that specific. Was it just called the void where Elias was?
The void. Yeah. But you know what's funny that I'm just like realizing now, because that is like what they decided to do with the pruning sticks, they're basically just temp pads on a stick with predefined coordinates. Kind of funny to think about it. They just like stab him with a temp pad. It's like, you're going over here.
Well, that's true, because that guy, I kind of, when they get through like the void and all this crazy stuff's happened, they face Eliath, they're going to this giant castle, and they're like, who are we going to see? And it's just this regular guy who's just a wicked smart scientist, and apparently he's gained powers through that. But they don't really say that he has powers, because he does have that temp pad on his wrist where he can teleport. He just knows everything that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think he pre-programmed in
because of this program.
Yeah. Because he knows everything that's going to happen. He was able to basically pre-program like movements or being able to speed up or slow down time or something like that.
So we could have used some sort of technology to wipe their memories, because it seems like he's not a magical person. He just has super advanced tech that controls these situations and can send people through and back through the timeline.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely was didn't have any special powers, which, not to jump to the end spoiler here, but he didn't really put up much of a fight when he got stabbed through the chest and immediately died.
No. Yeah, it was very much like, I don't know what's going to happen at the end of this show scenario, where it's very unpredictable, I guess is what I'm trying to say, which is nice. I mean, you don't
know what's coming.
Yeah, it's nice to have a show where you're not expecting or not able to think of what's going to happen next. So it was nice in that sense, because I didn't know what was going to happen. Like, in that moment, I was like imagining what it would be like if they just took over the control of the timeline. I was like, well, that would be kind of boring. So then I was like, in my head, I'm like, well, she's probably going to kill him, because that's the more interesting story,
Yeah.
So
what's funny?
Yeah.
When they walk up to that temple and they open the doors open, before anything happened, I was like, oh my God, watch it be that stupid clock thing. The little digital clock thing is like the actual timekeeper. And then he popped up, or he or she popped up.
Yeah, the little hologram.
And I was like, oh no. So that was like the one thing that I kind of predicted, like right before it happened or whatever. But luckily they went in a totally different direction with it.
Yeah, that was kind of silly, and it wasn't silly. It was a kind of an interesting scene, and how it was this kind of like she had this like little malicious type of tone or sinister tone rather.
Yeah, the eyes kept like,
Yeah,
doing
she's
this
like,
kind of
well,
thing.
good
Like, I'm
luck with
getting you
that.
those files. Yeah.
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 But I think we should talk about a little bit about the Void episode where he is in this pruning where after he gets pruned, there's a lot. He meets all those different Lokis. It's just like a lot of fun, like fun aspects to that episode. The alligator Loki is really funny.
Yeah, that was absurd.
Yeah, and he
I don't
bites.
even know if that's in any of the comics. I think that they just kind of decided to do that.
That could have just. I think that might have just been like a made up thing, and I don't know if any of them, except for maybe the original one, really. That guy who's like glorious
That
purpose.
was amazing. And he basically like fabricates Asgard. I think it was.
Yeah, like an entire city for him for aliens to get distracted by.
Yeah, that was amazing. And I love that original costume. I like the fact that I feel like in a lot of these more modern shows or modern movies, and it happened. The first thing I ever saw it with was the first X-Men movie. They thought it would be too cheesy or stupid, or it wouldn't like play to have the original costumes, so they went with like a more sleek thing. But I
Yeah,
feel like that original Loki costume looked amazing. Like it was so cool to
yeah,
see that on screen, and it definitely played.
yeah. That was a lot of fun to see. And in their little hideout, there one thing I noticed was that they had a Polybius cabinet. So when they showed that guy, who they labeled the classic Loki,
Mhm.
um, behind him is like this Polybius cabinet, and I thought that was really cool because Polybius. There's a lot of lore with Polybius. It's like an arcade game, so it's an arcade cabinet, and there's the lore is that the FBI or a government agency created this cabinet and planted it in arcades throughout the 80s when they were really big, 80s and 90s,
Yep.
or I think it was mainly in the 80s, to test um, kids their like abilities or something. It was like this science experiment that was constructed, and they put all these systems, and then they recalled them so they can get the information back. So I thought it was really funny, and for all we know, this is just totally made up. It's just this big lore that I think was just created on the internet. But
I don't know.
people have like,
Could have been part of MK Ultra. Who knows?
yeah, I don't know. It's one of those cool conspiracy theories, or interesting ones anyway. And the fact that they put that in their little hideout, I thought was really kind of neat because it was like it's just like one of like a nerdy little thing to do for that only like an X amount of people will really
I didn't
get.
know anything about that. I didn't pick up on that. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's cool that it's there because it's almost like like the TVA would have been like, no, we got to like get rid of this thing, like send it to the void. So,
Yeah,
kind of cool.
exactly. And you got the little frog Thor. Did you see this? Remember when
Uh,
they're like going to the hideout?
oh yeah. And he's in a bottle.
He's in a little bottle. At first, I
Yeah,
thought it was regular, like a miniature Thor, but apparently it's Frog Thor that was in the comics briefly.
I do actually remember Frog Thor very briefly as well. I think I've seen pictures of it. I definitely didn't like read any. I never really read any of the Thor comics as a kid, so but I do remember that.
And another thing, an Easter egg, Thanos helicopter. Did you hear about this?
I saw it in the show,
I
and
didn't even see it. I just heard about it.
yeah, I saw it, and I was like, "What is that? Like, what? I don't remember that from anything." But I mean, it's a big yellow helicopter. It says Thanos across the tail, and I was just like, "Okay, that's interesting."
Apparently, in the old comics, he had a helicopter.
He needs that.
It's like one of those. It's like something from the old Batman TV show, like the Batcopter or
Yeah,
something.
totally.
It's a Thanos copter.
Pre-Infinity Stones, when he didn't have the powers, he needed to use, you know,
Yeah, you
80s
use
technology.
use regular transportation provided to him from Earth, apparently. Um, so yeah, a lot of fun stuff in that episode. the dynamic. I really throughout the show, I really like seeing Loki and Sylvia. I think it's Sylvia, right? Get attached.
I think it's Sylvie.
Sylvie. Yeah. I think it's Sylvie. And just like they're like how they get kind of attached, and then it just even after all that, it still kind of falls apart. They become kind of like, even though you see it more in the original Loki, that he like really wants.
Yeah, he's actually changed.
Yeah.
He's like really gone through a full arc throughout the episodes. And I love that one line where he's like, where he has like he just sees it all. He's just like outside, he's a bird's eye view, he sees it, and he's just like, it's because you can't trust anybody and I can't be trusted. And like he just says it with such like not desperation, but just like such sincerity.
Mm-hmm.
That particular moment really hit, and Sylvie just didn't care. She wasn't with him at the moment. She was on her own kick. But I think, it plays well because she's been waiting her entire life. She's been like jumping through time for an amount of time that we can't even perceive, and she's here to like end this, and like she needs to finish this.
Right.
So I get why they had to do it that way. There was like, I was thinking about it afterwards. I was like, so how would they do it if like they take over the timeline? Like that wouldn't be interesting. That would just be weird. And
exactly.
like, and then like the other scenario,
you're boring.
If they both were like, we're gonna kill them, then that's not as interesting either. So, but I also feel like the way that it's gone down, this idea of like multiverses and the fact that it's basically like an infinite number, that lends itself well to a disappointing, like the writing can get disappointing very easily because there's an infinite number of these scientists now, and I don't see how you combat that. I mean, without doing some kind of like, button push writing where it's just like, we hit the button to delete all the universes, everybody's safe now.
Yeah, like they take back control of the universes and they bring it back to harmony.
Yeah, and they're gonna like invent a superhero who has the ability to like pull timelines together. So it's like, I don't know, it's always some kind of like catch-all thing when you have something that's that grand and threatening.
There's also like no more stakes in these Marvel shows because nobody can die anymore. It's just like, now that there's multiverse, there's another Lokis that can take over. Right. There's another Captain Americas, or like Vision comes back in the other show, and what was the other one? I thought there was somebody else that comes back too. Oh well. Anyway, it's just like kind of, I don't know what the future will hold for the movies, but they definitely aren't as interesting to me, or they won't be as interesting to me going forward. I don't think not as much as the Thanos saga was. What?
Yeah, I really wish that they would just get off Avengers, because honestly, like, while I do really like, I like the Avengers movies, I like the Marvel movies, like, I feel like we need to give X-Men its due. Like, there's so many good stories in X-Men, and I think that recently they have, I might be wrong about this, but I feel like Disney got the rights to X-Men somewhat recently, because they have like, X-Men and Friends, the X-Men Dark Phoenix on Disney Plus. So I think that they've obtained some kind of rights to X-Men recently, and I hope that something's in the works, because to give that treatment, it'd be cool if they kind of, they did Iron Man first. It'd be cool if they did like a Wolverine movie.
Yeah.
And then that sprung, was a springboard into doing like the X-Men, or doing a full-on, a better origin movie more close to like the comics. And then, springboard something, or just because I'm tired of seeing Avengers based storylines. Like, I was never really that big into that side of the Marvel universe to begin with.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, I'd like to see that too. I mean, a much more fluid X-Men story.
Yeah.
And I mean, not to like trash the old ones. I enjoyed those ones for the most part. I mean, they're good, and obviously Hugh Jackman as Wolverine is
amazing.
He's like Stewart. The Tony Stark, Robert Downey Juba. He's like Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, it's like you can't really see another actor playing him, but yeah, that
Yeah,
would be nice.
that is one thing that would be a little challenging, is that I think Hugh Jackman's done playing Wolverine.
Yeah.
Patrick Stewart's getting honestly older to the point where I don't know if he really would be a convincing Professor X at this point. So,
Well, they did do a good job recasting that for that one point in time. First Class, was it called? X-Men First Class.
yeah, Michael Fassbender and the other guy.
Yeah, I don't remember his name either, but he was Professor X, and I don't know. That was pretty good for a while, and then they started to mix them, and it got a little weird. They like mixed the timelines. So you had to bring. So were able to bring Hugh Jackman as Wolverine again, and like some other characters. But yeah, I don't know where they're gonna go with the second season now that we have the He Who Remains is dead, and a new He Who Remains has come, who is apparently probably a little more evil. There's good and evil ones, and they looks like they got a more evil one if there's a big statue of him at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how they tie this up. But I really like the series, and I every single episode, I was just like, oh my god, I need more. Like, I need to see the next one right now. So,
yeah, it ended so abruptly. I was like, that's it. Like you said earlier, it's just like, come on, no.
yeah, they tied up. They tied up kind of the main thing that we were looking for, which is, who's behind the TVA. We got to see that, but in a way it was anticlimactic because of how they presented it. Like, it was just like comical scene of like, I'm just the guy behind the curtain and I'm an ordinary guy and I'm real smart.
Yeah.
And here's how it happened. Like, it was kind of a
little
bit of a rug pull, where it was just like, oh, okay, it's all, here's what it is.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of the trouble with shows in general, right? It's like when you finally see the reveal, it's not nearly as exciting as the journey to get there. So
yeah, it was. They had that kind of like twist to it where they didn't make it like a crazy infinite cosmic powers genie of the lamp, which is nice that they did that. So, and they like when I think of it, it's kind of like a Quantum Leap ending. You ever watch that show? It just feels like it's so abrupt. And like, yeah, Scott Bakula, and just how the delivery of Owen Wilson, just like, who are you? And who are you? Are you grounded, like boots on the ground guy? And it's like,
yeah, he's like, you.
It just happens like so suddenly that it's just like totally messes with the viewer.
Yeah, because you think that you're seeing more. You're like, oh, okay, like we're going into this, so we're gonna actually, see more. This isn't where they would end it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they did.
Weird.
And
I wonder if there's a way. Yeah, that part was a little mind bending because I don't know how they're gonna get around that. If there's like a way to reveal to him the timeline that all that happened on. You know what I mean? Because clearly they've somehow like intersected with a different timeline and got picked up with it or something. I don't really know.
Yeah, but they have temp pads, so they can jump from timeline to timeline. There's no way they wouldn't be able to.
Right.
Because that's what they do, is they actually jump to the branches that deviate, and then they prune that deviation, and then it goes back to the regular timeline. So it's just he's in a temporary stop. He's in a stop where it's like, oh no, this is like the bad reality. It's like the new Ratchet and Clank game where they use the Dimensionator to, go to like this new dimension where the main villain is like Emperor or whatever. And it's like the only one, one dimension that has this reality. You just jump out of that reality and you're, back to normal. But so yeah, I don't think
like millions of them, and that's going to be not as easy to do.
Right. That's what I'm trying to get at, is that because they've now opened up this idea of, something that could infinitely replicate, it becomes very, very difficult to kind of write your way through that without it being like without kind of hitting it with a sledgehammer and just being like, and then all the universes converged into one. It's like, okay. Like, it's harder to make it interesting at that point, right? I think keeping it contained is interesting, and there's tension, and there's, good storytelling can be there. But once you kind of let the, the rabbit out of the hat kind of thing. It's kind of
Mm.
like, okay, well, now it's infinite universes, so we need a Superman or a, you know, multi-dimensionator to converge them all back together in one single timeline. Or they like go at the end and it's just like, well, I guess this is just how it is. Everything's multiversal and everything's fine now because we killed the scientists and all the realities and the end. There's only so many ways you can kind of get around it.
Right. Doctor Strange in the multiverse of madness. It's all multiverses now.
That would be cool if they did a crossover. If he popped in for something.
Like
He could
this?
be that. Yeah, into Loki.
Oh yeah, maybe. Well,
Yeah.
don't they?
I don't know.
No, maybe not. I thought he was at the end of WandaVision, but I don't think so. I think the end of WandaVision is supposed to lead into that Doctor Strange movie, Multiverse of Madness.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we'll see what the next season has to hold. You excited for the second Witcher season on Netflix coming out?
I'm excited. I really enjoyed that first season a lot.
Yeah.
Like that was serious, like
Awesome.
quality entertainment. Lots
Series.
of violence, lots of sexiness.
That's true. There's a lot of all the things you like.
A lot of nudity.
Violence with a capital V.
Yeah. That scene where he does what is it called? The murder of the big crime that he's supposed to commit. That's like part of his lore. The butcher of something.
The Butcher of Blaviken.
Butcher of shut up face.
I don't think they show that.
I thought that was the whole scene where he kills all those people in that town in like the second episode.
Oh, maybe you're right.
I think that was supposed to represent that like atrocious crime, like in a smaller sense, where he just starts killing all these people that start attacking him. Like he was trying to do something good, and then it kind of just went crazy. Yeah, that scene was like insane. It was just like the way they portrayed the violence in that show was really well done.
Yeah, I really like Henry Cavill a lot as well. I was actually I'm obviously I didn't read the books. I loved Witcher 3. So I was kind of like, using that as my source material for what Geralt would be like. And I was like, this is going to be really hard for him to do this in a believable way.
Right.
And nailed it. I mean, he just was so convincing as Geralt. It definitely helps that he was a fan of the books and a fan of the game. So he was definitely passionate about the role. But yeah, I'm excited for season 2. Definitely really cool.
Yes. All right, there's a loud moped driving by. But yeah,
you gotta watch out. You're in a dangerous neighborhood.
They're coming for me. Yeah, season 2. When is that coming out? Did you get the date?
I think it's December something.
December. Yeah, definitely looking forward to that. I'm still kind of looking forward to Stranger Things season
4.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's 4 now. Hopefully that'll be the last one. We'll probably keep it going.
Yeah, I think they do need to kind of probably tie it up and kind of wrap it up. I think 4 seasons is probably a good run. I feel like season 1 was, perfect. Season 2, kept it going.
Yep.
Season 3 is now starting to get into it feels a little looser, I will say.
They're trying to world build more with different other 11s or other people with powers.
Yeah. Didn't totally play. It kind of felt a little X-Men inspired.
Maybe just a little bit.
Yeah. Cool.
I think that's it, man.
Yeah, I think this is a good episode, and next time we'll talk Black Widow, probably, right? Or maybe
Black Widow or Ninja Turtles. You're gonna try and see it this weekend or something? Black Widow?
Yeah, I'm gonna try this weekend, so
rent it. Sweet.
Cool. See y'all next time.
See you guys and gals. Bye.